Today, guys, we have an incredible guest. I know you guys want to do footwear design, and so I have the best person that I know on the show today. I'm going to ask him all the questions, and he's going to give all the answers so that you guys it'll help you get to the next step to become a footwear designer. Okay, let's just jump right into it, Chris. I don't want to waste any time. The first question I have for you is just speak a little bit about your experience so that you can explain a little bit of your credibility, all the companies that you've worked for, because you work for a pretty impressive list of companies.
Yes, so first of all, it's a pleasure to be here. This is a great channel, and I'm happy to get to speak to some of you that follow this channel. And as Jimmy said, I've been working in the footwear industry for several years now. And, I was able to get started by doing internships in school. I think that was a great way for me to do it. It also seems to be the natural path that most designers take. But, my very first internship was actually in Long Beach, where both Jimmy and I went to school, and it was with New Balance. New Balance has an office in Long Beach where they do their skate category. The company is from Boston, but that's where they decided to do this part of their business, and that was definitely how I got started. After this opportunity, things got easier because with that name and that experience, it became easier to open other doors. So then, my goal was to try to gain as much experience as possible while in school. Therefore, after New Balance, I was able to go to Baltimore in Maryland, where I worked with the Under Armour on their cleated team. After that, I had one last internship with Vans back in Southern California, where I also did my last semester in school and finished my degree with Jimmy. So Vans was pro skate, which was also a great experience. Upon graduation, I worked for a Chinese brand called Alta. Alta is the largest footwear company of China. At the time, they were looking to expand in the US. They had opened an office in Santa Barbara, actually, where we did performance running and basketball and lifestyle. And after that experience, my wife, girlfriend at the time, and I decided to move to Boston because I had the opportunity to join Reebok, where I worked for about 3.5 years. And actually now I recently just started a new position as a senior designer at Puma, also here in Boston.
What is specifically your specialty? Footwear, I imagine, seems like such a big thing. You could be designing like stilettos, or you could be designing, again, like sneakers, and I imagine there's subcategories of sneakers. What specifically do you specialize in?
In my experience, it's been performance to lifestyle, street style, but I've always worked for sports brands. So in a sense, that could be the general category of athletic footwear. But, as you zoom into it, it's pretty diverse. A true performance product has very unique and technical specifications, different kind of priorities. A athleisure lifestyle product, in my experiences in the companies I worked for, always came from an athletic background, but then the usage was more casual.
Awesome. Yeah, that's an incredible list of companies, especially shoe design companies, that you've just accumulated over the years, and something that I've been extremely impressed by. Tell us about some of the things that you had to do to transition from one job to the next. Did you have to create a new portfolio and a brand new resume? And how did you even get recognized when applying for these jobs?
To be brief, yes to all of the above. I think having that experience and having that name definitely helps. but then you want to try to have something to show and to visually represent what you've learned. Especially as you're still new to the industry, you want to be able to prove that that experience was worth it and that you did learn tangible skills that you can now use and go into a new company, a new team, and help them out from the get-go. So yeah, I would say, you know, I was updating my portfolio weekly, and also I was starting to have conversations with some of these other brands, starting to find designers inside these companies that could help me with feedback, because as you probably know, as you probably mentioned, there's no universal portfolio. Each team or brand might prioritize certain things. So definitely, I was big on asking for feedback.
When you're presenting these portfolios, what kind of content are you showing? Are you mostly showing just finished renderings, prototypes, or from start to finish, all the different development stages? What kind of content are you actually showing, and maybe even how many projects are you showing in your portfolios?
So in regards to what to show, each designer might have a different answer, which, you know, what you show defines who you are, what you bring to the table. So it's definitely important to think about what you want to say and what do you want to be the skills that people notice about you. In my case, obviously you want to show the hard skills. You know, as a designer, that would be sketching, your making abilities, the software. You definitely want to show that you can use that. But I think it's also important to show the soft skills as well. So your ability to understand who the consumer is, what their needs are. But I think in this case specifically, if you're applying to a brand, each brand spends a lot of time and money developing their point of view and their personality. So it will only help you if you understand what that is. If you're trying to get into a certain company and you show that you understand who they are, and if you're making a passion project for them or your portfolio, you want to show that that could make sense for the kind of business they run.
As far as going back to our viewers, they're students most likely. They're interested in footwear design. They're probably attending a university and they're working on all these projects that me and you have worked on when we were in school together. Do you have any recommendation on what they can be working on as they're going to school, as they're working on their class projects to maybe improve their probability on landing a footwear design gig?
Have footwear projects if that's what you want to do. That might seem obvious, but I do run sometimes into students who might be very talented and skilled, and they do have an interest for footwear, and they don't really show it in their portfolio. So if that's what you want to do, make sure you develop like projects, and if you don't have the opportunity to do it in school, try to find time to do it on your own time, because that would be the first thing, showing that you have a passion for it and that you have an initial understanding and you have tried before. And then I think additionally, it's really important to develop your own design point of view and trying to be unique in the way you display work. So this might seem vague, but I think it's really important to develop your own design sensibility and make sure that your portfolio doesn't look like any other portfolio. And so there is no universal answer for this other than just maybe looking at a lot of portfolios, and then try to find the way that sets you apart. Maybe it's the way you present the story, you talk about your consumer. It can be your rendering style. It can be, the software you use. But anytime you try to find something that sets you apart, that will definitely help you emerge from the pack.
Yeah, with the it seems like there's a lot of emphasis on portfolio. Let's just talk about some of the very specifics. Like, what kind of portfolio do you have? Do you have a personal website? Do you have a PDF? Do you have a Behance page? How are you building this portfolio to share it with these potential employers?
Yeah, that's a great question because I think it's changing, already from when we were students to, today's students. I kind of have all of those. I have a Behance, I have a personal website, I have an Instagram page, and I think when you are sending your work, when you apply for a job, it's important to have a website, I think, because it's kind of your dedicated space and you curate what projects you want to show. But something that I see really help designers emerge actually is Instagram. Um, and designers use Instagram almost as a design diary where they share a lot of their work, and maybe it's just a sketch, maybe it's just one like rendering. But I have seen people being noticed from Instagram as well. And so that's something you can leverage as well. Behance, obviously, that's more for, I believe, full projects. That seems to be the content that you have there. But um, yeah, I think, your portfolio is what you show when you're actually have established a relationship and conversation. But then everything else is opportunities to connect with other designers and professionals.
Can you talk a little bit about actually building this portfolio? Because I know personally it takes so much time, it takes so much effort gathering all the content, making sure you have it all, putting it all, composing it all in a nice, beautiful way. Can you talk just a little bit about that?
I would say it's better to have fewer projects, very well crafted and thought out, than to have a ton of projects that haven't really been fully polished. Which I'm not trying to say make your portfolio perfect because perfection can be enemy of the design, the sense that you'll never feel like you're done. But I think if you have a few very good projects, that will be enough. You don't need to have a million projects. And it's also something that we should think about as designers. Think about your portfolio as a product and think about others interacting with this product and their experience interacting with it. You don't want to overwhelm them, and you want to be concise and to the point. So I think pick your best projects and really push them and polish those. I think it's more effective than trying to show a lot, because then it might be a little bit overwhelming, and you're also, you can be compared to the experience of going to a high-end restaurant and a lower-end restaurant, having a million options you don't know where to pick from, but also just having a few very well thought out.
For a footwear designer, what sort of kind of programs do you find yourself using the most on the daily basis? As far as maybe 2D kind of programs and then 3D kind of programs.
The most used software in the for industry, that would be Adobe Illustrator. So definitely take the time to learn it if you want to get into footwear design. Adobe Photoshop, obviously both for sketching and just for rendering. Hand sketching is important. It's still widely used. And in regards to 3D, that depends. Kind of depends on your role. If you are looking into being a 3D designer and designing for 3D printing, Rhino has been widely used for a long time, but I think now there's many more options, and designers are kind of picking up what they're interested in learning as well. So Blender is a great software that is free. Gravity Sketch is a new one that has been adopted quite a bit. It's also fun to use with the VR headset. So yeah, 3D I think depends a little bit more.
Yeah, it's funny because at least for me, I don't do too much sketching. I mostly design consumer electronics kind of parts, so I'll do like maybe quick thumbnails for about a day, figuring things out, and then I'll immediately just jump into 3D and SolidWorks and stuff like that. But I imagine for a footwear designer, you guys are doing a lot more sketches. What kind of views are you mostly doing? Mostly side views, front views, you know? So, what is the best way to kind of figure out how to design a shoe?
The lateral view, as you mentioned, is definitely one of the key views because if you think about the way you oftentimes interact with the sneaker, it might be on the shelf, and so that's oftentimes where you start. But that being said, I think it's important to think of sneakers from all angles. That oftentimes will allow you to create a more intriguing product. But in footwear design, there is such a big emphasis on proportions, and so oftentimes that lateral view might be your key sketch where everything starts. But then everything else you add on top of it, I think will help you describe your vision to others.
So you mentioned Illustrator. What specifically are you doing in Illustrator? Are you mostly doing line drawings? Are you adding color and finishes or textures and materials and all that kind of stuff? What are specifically are you doing in Illustrator?
It's creating the artwork that then you will use to communicate with factories. And it's also how you prepare colorways. So once you have that CAD created, you'll generate however many colorways you need. Um, there might be a color designer who focuses just on that. But yeah, it's pretty much what you said.
So when you have a project, generally, I imagine you're producing a couple of different concepts. How many concepts do you usually show to stakeholders?
It kind of depends on the project, to be honest. If it is a franchise project, which is just maintaining the majority of the existing design elements, that might be quicker than designing a brand new model, brand new franchise, or maybe something you're designing as an innovation project that is several years out into the future. So it kind of depends, but I guess what I would say is the more innovative of a project you're working on, the more design work and therefore ideation you should have time to do.
Let's go back a little bit about all these jobs that you've had. For me at least, it seems like if I want to kind of work at this company or that company, I imagine I'm going to have to move. I'm going to have to change locations, which is a big deal, I think. And you've moved from Long Beach, to Santa Barbara, and then now all the way to Boston. If somebody wanted to go follow in your footsteps, this is something that probably they should be comfortable with.
Yes, I think that was something that actually always excited me and I was always passionate about. I grew up in Italy and I moved to the US after high school. So I've always been adventurous in that sense. But yes, I think if you really want to do this, you might have to move. And I think that goes for all jobs, though, right? Um, Even other industries, you might be required to move. And I always saw that as a positive, as an opportunity to experience something new. But yeah, you might have to do that, unless you happen to already be close to where a major company is. But yeah, in my case, for sure, I had to do it.
Awesome. So, if a student wanted to again pursue footwear design, what are the specific things about footwear design that makes a great footwear designer? What are the skills that are required? The intangible kind of things that make a great footwear designer.
Yeah, what I love about forward design is that it's very design driven, and it's a product people are quite passionate about. You could compare it to car design in that sense. People do spend a lot of time thinking about what shoes they want, and also I'm really intrigued by the whole brand identity. What does the brand represent? And all the time you spend into storytelling and creating these technologies and these experiences. I think that's really fun. So that is what I love about forward design, and how has the ability, being a product people pay attention to change the way you feel, right? I think we can all relate to the experience of buying a brand new pair of sneakers, whether they were sports sneakers or lifestyle, and feeling faster, feeling cooler. So that's a great. I find that to be very rewarding as a designer when others feel that way. And you're basically asking, what do you need to get into it, right?
Well, what are some of the specific things? Maybe, like, I imagine just from the outside looking in, maybe you need to have a deep knowledge of fabrics and materials and colors and maybe construction and stuff like that. Specific things that maybe somebody that is a natural kind of footwear designer. What are some of those things?
That's a great question. You'll get very diverse answers to. Depends on who you ask. Some people will tell you that it's all about your ability to be conceptual and create stories that are exciting and relevant to the consumers. Others will tell you that it's all about the product and truly understanding how it's made. And it doesn't make sense to design all the spaceships that can be made. My answer tends to be in the middle. I don't think one excludes the other. I think great designers, a great designer can do both. You have the ability to think conceptually and truly, pitch that blue star, North Star idea that inspires the whole company. But then you also need to understand how a product is made and be tangible when needed. Um, in my experience, though, I didn't really know too much about how sneakers were made, and I learned that getting into the industry. And I think in my experience, every time I was interviewed, especially for internship and junior jobs, I was never being evaluated for my technical knowledge of the product. It was more about my ability to excite, my ability to create concepts and stories. That's been my experience. I'm sure somebody has met someone interviewing them that wanted to make sure they knew exactly how things were made, and obviously that will be expected as you progress in your career, but um, it wasn't something that was a filter for me getting in.
It's actually very fascinating. I keep wanting to go back to all these companies that you jumped through, and I imagine that every company, they have their own design language, their own style guides. What is it like to learn one and then to have to be so used to it and then change to another and then a couple years change to another? What is the process like for you?
For me, it was good. It was a positive because it allowed me to be flexible, and you start to develop an understanding into what goes into developing a language. And it gave me an appreciation to the importance of developing a design language, which sounds obvious when you're in school, but it's really hard, especially when you work for a big design company, because yes, everybody wants to be consistent. You want to show up as a family of product, but then each category has different needs, has different consumers, and everybody wants to grow the business. They want to add new things, and then you're caught into this dilemma. We can't reinvent ourselves, but we can also stay the same. We need to always innovate and grow. So how do you do that? And so it's hard. And so seeing how so many different companies approach this helped me develop an understanding and also an appreciation for this. And it is really important. It is really important to have a point of view even before product. What do you stand for and what do you represent?
Okay, let's we're wrapping it up to a couple last questions for you. Let's talk a little bit about pay, as everybody probably already is wondering. Like, so what is usually the expectation of, let's just say, an internship? Because you mentioned you've had internships in the past. What about an internship kind of a pay? What can a student expect to get paid?
Yeah, so first of all, we're speaking about the US. Uh, if somebody's watching from a different country, I wouldn't really be able to help because that's where my experience was. Secondly, before I say anything, you can find a great deal of information and data online, websites like Glassdoor, because they're big companies that have had a lot of employees, so you can start there. I think all internships should be paid because you're working. Um, it's been a while since I did my first internship, so I hope they've been adjusted for inflation and they're a little bit more.
Minimum wage now is $15 an hour.
What's that?
Minimum wage in America now is $15 an hour.
Yeah. So honestly, I don't know, but I hope it's more than minimum wage for sure. I mean, you should be able to afford your lifestyle. And I guess it's difficult to give an answer to because it really depends on the city. If you get an internship in New York, they should be paying you more than if you are in a less expensive state. So I don't have a good answer. I would say, go online and Glassdoor, and you should be able to find a good idea.
I think that's actually a better answer to give than just this hard number because it'll get outdated. It depends on where you live. But I think the best answer to give is to teach the audience how to find the answer on their own so that whenever they need it, they can just go out and they could look for it and they know where to look, which is, like, as you mentioned, Glassdoor.
Yeah, and definitely do it. I don't want to make it seem like it's not important. Of course it is, and you want to be paid what you're worth. So, definitely do your research. As you're starting out, you have less leverage, obviously, but all of these companies, as far as I know, all of their internships are paid, and from what I see, students that go through them are able to afford their lifestyle in these places. So I don't know if that's a good answer or not, but it should be decent.
Awesome. So, Chris, going back to all these jobs that you've had, and I imagine you worked through the rankings now. You've gone through a lot of experiences. We're pretty much 5 years out ever since we've graduated. What are some of the job titles that you've had and grown through, and what's even past what a senior industrial design title is?
Normally, you would start with an internship. That sometimes nowadays is called apprenticeship, which I've seen being as long as 1 year full time post graduation, which I think is great because it allows you to get in once you finish your degree, but just to focus on your job rather than having to divide your time between your work projects and school projects. After that, you then would be hired as a junior designer that sometimes can be called designer one. So then after this position, what comes after is designer two, which you could call it mid-level. This position can be, it depends how much experience, it depends on your experience, but I think you're generally, considered eligible I don't like to use that word, but that can be like 3 to 5 years of experience. It all depends. So don't get attached to these numbers. And then after that, then you will normally have that senior design position. Um, at that point, it really depends on what you want to do. I think there is this misconception, not just in design industry, but in all industries, that you have to get into management and you have to become a director. But I don't think you have to and shouldn't feel the natural evolution. I think that should be only if you want, if you have the personality for it, and yeah, if you have a desire for it. So what I'm saying is, as a senior designer, you can stay a senior designer the rest of your life. You can still grow. If we talk money, you can still make more based on your experience. But what that means is that you're still going to focus on product and designing product. Um, if you then move into a design manager role, design director, then you are taking care of the team and all the design projects. So you're taking a step back, and I don't know if this analogy is going to help, but you're becoming a little bit of the coach. You're still going to design here and there, and you're still going to intervene with more maybe junior designers or even senior designers if help is needed. But you're more kind of managing the design projects and offering assistance and also making sure all projects are delivered. So you're stepping a little bit away from the actual design projects, which sometimes people don't like. Sometimes people are really in love with the product and they want to stay there. If we then move up a little bit more, then you can be director, senior director. Then another position higher in the hierarchy would then be VP of design. In some places, it can even then become chief design officer. Depends if the company has such role. At this point, you're even like further removed from the product, a step back, and it should be all about the environment. You are creating an environment that allows all your designers to be incredibly inspired and design the very best product. And you're working next to the CEO, to marketing, to development, to make sure that everybody understands the importance of design and allows design to truly shine. That's your role. So essentially, you are an advocate in the company to non-designers.
And when you progressed through these rankings, was it something that was kind of handed to you, or was it something that you intentionally tried to get? Like asked for review and said all these great things that you've done, and asked can I get this kind of a title? What was kind of the process for you to try to go through all of these titles?
Yeah, I think what you mentioned is spot on. We as designers need to manage our own career. We need to be the ones making sure that we understand what is considered a success. I've worked with many different managers. Each one defines success differently. So you won't really find one answer that works for everyone necessarily, other than being passionate and being committed. But when you get specific to what is needed, you really need to be good about establishing that relationship and figuring out what's important to your team, your manager, and the company. Um, and sometimes, that's not easy. I make it sound like it's easy, but even if you ask, even if you want and develop a development plan, it might still be difficult. And so, you know, you don't owe anything to any company. If you find an opportunity that makes you excited, that you think would be good for you, I think you owe it to yourself to consider it. And I think a good company will understand that and will encourage you. If they think there is a good opportunity for you, they will help you learn more and give more than where you are now, they should understand and be happy for you. Because at the end, what's the point of keeping a designer at a place where you don't feel like they can truly express themselves and unleash their talent? So Yeah, be honest with yourself, and you think something else might be best for you and you can contribute more, then do it. You know, no reason to hold back.
You and I, we're considered more in-house staff designers for like
Yeah.
companies, but then you could also take the consultancy route. You could
Yeah.
maybe even start your own consultancy, or you could even start your own business, branded and sell your own products, design your own products, and all that kind of stuff. Can you touch a little bit about the benefits, maybe, and the pros and cons of maybe working at a consultancy versus like maybe a in-house designer?
You can be a freelancer, a consultant, which can be very rewarding. I know people who started that way and then moved to bigger companies, people who started bigger companies and now are freelancers, people who do both. So I think, as a freelancer, you have more freedom in regards to what projects you take on. You're working directly with a client. Sometimes you'll still work with brands, but um, you will have diversity in the projects you do because you'll most likely have more than one client. Um, I think also as a freelancer, it gives you the opportunity to develop your unique point of view a little bit more. You can be a freelancer for 3D work or for very technical product. And I think because you manage your own projects and you pick them, it allows you to develop your brand and your specialty a little bit more. You know, inside of a company, you can still do that, but then you're kind of going to be given the projects that the company needs from you. I think if you're a freelancer and it's just you might miss out on the opportunity to be part of a design team, which some people might not care, others consider important. I think it's important because I learn a lot from others, even if they're less experienced than me. That new perspective and point of view is what keeps it exciting. And I love design conversations. Is where some of my best ideas come from. And so I would miss that if I was just working on my own, but I think you can develop your own team as well. So it doesn't necessarily go away. And you're also your own boss if you're a freelancer. So you get exposure to that whole business management part, which is great experience. But I guess as a downside, you don't have to worry about that when you're part of a brand. Your role is more niche and specialized. But I know people who are freelancers, and it's really rewarding for them, and they're able to work on amazing projects as well.
Awesome, Chris. Okay, I have one last question for you. I'm so happy that we were able to get you on, and I think this is so beneficial for all the students out there, the people that are have inspiration and aspirations to want to be footwear designer. And I think they've drawn a lot of great knowledge and maybe even understand now a better understanding of the industry. Do you have any kind of last recommendations for these students? Maybe think about the Chris from 5 or 6 years ago, just trying to figure all of this out. Like, is there any kind of thing that you can help, that Chris back in the day? Like, what is some advice that you can give him?
Have fun with it, enjoy the journey. It might sound obvious, but it's really true. Especially in design, if you're having fun with it, it shows. And work if it's really what you want to do, work on it. And uh, work on your skills, work on your portfolio, but then also work on your relationships and network. Put yourself out there, show your work, seek that feedback, and be resilient. You'll reach out to people you won't hear back. Don't let that discourage you. Keep going because that's how you get better. For me, it was truly then when I started having conversations with people that were in the industry that told me, quite frankly, your work is not there yet, but here's what you need to do. Some of my best learning moments came from rejections. But then I followed up and I was persistent about getting feedback. And then when I look back, that's what helped me the most. So I would say, work on your design skills, and then don't be afraid to ask questions.
Oh man, so good.
Yeah.
Chris, dude, that's really motivational. Just to be completely honest, when we were going to school, we knew like some of the students who were just really really good, and like the very top students, right? And I think that you weren't quite the top student, but yet now after seeing how 5 years later and all played out, like I put you at the very at the very top of seeing the kind of experiences that you've gone through and the heights that you've been able to reach and all the successes that you've had. And so I'm so impressed by everything that you've done during school and then even outside of school. So I really appreciate you being on, Chris. And this was for my viewers that want to get inspired by and want to learn more about the footwear industry. But I feel like I've taken a lot out of this too myself. And some of those questions were kind of just like what I was wondering after hearing you talk. So I really appreciate you jumping on this call and answering all my questions.
No, definitely. And I think you touched upon an important point. It is true. We had a really strong class when we were in school, and some people like yourself had an impressive skill set. You know, I feel like you had showed up to the program already knowing, having a pretty good idea of what design was and what skills were needed. And, if you're passionate about it and keep working, there's no limit to progress. And I think that skills is not everything. Your passion really shows through your conversations. Last thing I'll say, when I had that first opportunity with New Balance, I was told that my passion for footwear design is what helped me get in. It wasn't my portfolio, it wasn't my skills. Other students who applied were ahead of me at the time, but the person who picked me wanted whoever joined the team to want to be there, have a real passion, and so that will go far. And lastly, it's great to finally be on this channel. Jimmy definitely knows what he's talking about, so you're following the best industrial design channel there is. And if you want to connect with me, you can definitely do that. Maybe we can link my LinkedIn or my Instagram profile, where I try to keep up and post content, both conceptual and professional. And that way you can ask me more questions if you have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris.